how was that victory for you, and how does it feel to make the switch over to the UFC?
It's such a great feeling. I mean, it's an unimaginable feeling that words can't describe. I've been working very hard. I mean, it's been years in the making, but I know that I knew that all my hard work would eventually come into fruition. I knew that if I just stayed the path, no matter what, things came along the way, whatever bumps on the road, that eventually my hard work would pay off and would land me in the big stage. I mean, the feeling is just great. There's nothing greater in this world than knowing that the culmination of all of your hard work and all your sacrifices throughout the years, eventually landed you an opportunity, that it gave you, momentum, gave you, the position that you're in now in life.
What's the biggest changes that you've noticed so far? Do you think it's going to be the competition that you're facing? Is it the way the organizations run? What have you sort of noticed in your short time that you've been with them?
I mean, the UFC, from just the small experience I've had so far, just for my first fight, they've treated me extremely well. I mean, I haven't had a better experience than I've had, with any of the promotions. They've all been great, but the experience I've had with the UFC so far is extremely professional. They've been great to all the fighters, and you could ask for a better experience with any promotion.
Craig's a tough opponent. What was the game plan coming in for him?
I studied Craig for the past 3.5 weeks, whatever time I was given, for this fight. I knew he was a strong opponent coming forward. He likes that pressure. He likes coming in, and he comes to the fight. He doesn't lay back, and those are actually the kind of fights that make me more aggressive. I can't lay back. I can't be, calm, collective, and try to fight on the outside. He's the type of opponent where he's going to bring the pressure, and you got to come ready for that pressure. So because of that, those are actually the fights that I love the most. Is those pressured kind of fights where there's a lot of forward momentum. Because I'm the same way. Hats off to him. He's a very tough opponent. And I couldn't ask for a better adversary for my first fight, but he was just a very tough opponent, and I knew I had to come out there, not just be aggressive, but also be smart.
He's super durable, has shown his durability in the past. To get this stoppage, I mean, that's got to be kind of a cherry on top of this whole deal. Just talk about the stoppage. Did you know you had him finished?
From my past experiences, I knew not to go crazy if someone's, dropped or staggered, or there's, it seems like the fight's over, because it can never be over. You get some people, they're just really tough, man. It looks like, they're going to be out, and from, experience, everyone's seen that fight where people just go crazy because they think they're going to finish, and then they gas themselves out. So, like I said before, I try to be smart about my fight as well, so just a good combination of smart and aggressiveness. I knew that once he dropped, I felt him kind of go limp. But I saw that he was starting to recover a little bit, and I was like, you know what, let me just go at him, let me just throw everything I could at him. And knowing that he's a very durable opponent as well, I didn't want to go too crazy, but man, I just saw the opportunity there. It really is the expression, they say, like, sharks smell blood and water, and I sensed that danger, I sensed that he was almost out, so I went for the finish.
You've had some ups and downs in your career. You got a Bellator belt at home on the mantle. Where does this win, kind of rank among your career highs?
I mean, it makes me completely ecstatic that, again, I have the opportunity right now to fight for the UFC. It's the world's top promotion. It's the highest echelon of the sport right now when it comes to mixed martial arts. So it's the greatest feeling in the world. It makes me feel like I'm at the bottom of the totem pole. But at the same time, that's the kind of feeling that makes a fighter want to stay motivated and work extremely hard to fight their way up that totem pole, to slowly eat their way up the food chain again.
What does this win say about you going forward, do you think?
I'm here to stay. This is my arena. This is where I belong. Right now, this is my time. This is, the UFC right now is my opportunity.
We know this is just the beginning, but have you seen all the guys, good fighters in the welter division right now? Is there some kind of motivation for you try to reach that level?
Right now, I'm keeping my head down, and whatever opponents the UFC is willing to put in front of me, each and every time that opponent's placed in front of me is going to be a test for me. And I'm not looking at anybody. I've done my scouting. I'm looking around at all the competition, and the 170 division is a very, very stacked division right now. So right now I'm just keeping my head down, just training hard, and whatever the UFC puts in front of me is going to be my challenge, but at the same time my opportunity to prove to the world that this is where I belong.
Can you say, around the halfway point in the first round, it seems like you finally figured out where his feet would take him back when he got away from you, which way he was, and you really start putting together combinations. At first, you'd land a jab, and then a cross, and then all of a sudden, his jab cross hit 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. How did you know, like, I got him? I know exactly where he's going. Does it click in your head, like, I got him, or how does that work?
This truly is a sport where it's a thinking man's game. It's like a game of chess. You put a pawn out there to see how they're going to react to it, and I threw out enough jabs to kind of feel him out, to know what he was going to do and how he was going to react. And as the round was progressing, I started to see opportunities and things that he was doing, certain habits. But at the same time, I was studying him every single day for the past 3.5 weeks, so I knew how he was going to react. The first minute or so was just to see if he's changed since his last few fights. Because there are fighters that evolve from one fight to the other, and then you have fighters that, they're just the same. They have a certain set way of fighting, and they fight like that every time. So I just wanted to not go out there and then be surprised by anything. For the past 3.5 weeks of studying him, I wanted to go out there, throw a few jabs, and then see how he was going to react. See if he was the same Andrew Craig that I studied for the past few weeks.
When you're studying someone, when you go in and you actually land that and you feel their power, or you land your first punch, do you think, this is what I expect? This is what I signed up for? Is this a whole different guy? Like, when do you decide, like, oh shit, this isn't the guy I thought it was? Or, oh shit, that's the same thing, easy night?
It depends. Like I said, there's some fighters where they go back to the drawing board and they evolve and they change their whole entire game plan. But that's the beauty about the sport, man. It's such a beautiful sport that there's a lot of tactic, a lot of strategy, and a lot of thinking behind this mixed martial arts world that that us fighters live in. That you can either evolve and just be completely tactical, in your fights and in your strategy, or you go out there and you're the same person every time. You're just that one fighter that you're known for something, and you go out there and you're always that same person. So I knew after the first minute or so feeling him out, he was the same Andrew Craig.
Once that pendulum starts to swing and you got his timing, you got his movement, his distance, do you start thinking, I'm going to work to finish this, or do you still think, I'm going to work to finish what comes my way? Like, do you instantly think, I'm going to get an armbar. Whatever happens, I'm going to try to land it. Or just, I'm going to go what comes my way and I'm going to land it.
I don't look for the finish. The finish kind of finds me in a way where I see the opportunity, and then if it's there, I go for it. I try. I'm not one of those fighters that predict things, or I say, oh, this is how I'm going to finish the fight. It's going to be specifically this or specifically that. You have to kind of just roll with the fight and see what's there. And when that opportunity presents itself, you see it, you go for it.
Did you experience Octagon jitters, or maybe even earlier in the week, just UFC jitters that come along with everybody that debuts? Not everybody, but most.
No, I wouldn't say this time around I felt those jitters. I experienced the same nerves as I do with every fight. But a lot of times in my training camp, it's not just about the training itself. A lot of it is visualization. I walked around with Andrew Craig's picture on my phone. The whole 3.5 weeks I've had him there. My girlfriend probably hated it the whole entire time. I go to sleep with white noise of the crowd, of the arena. I train with that white noise as well, with the sounds of like a stadium. When I'm in training, I sit down on a bench. I do a lot of visualization to try to rid myself of that thing that happens, because it does. You're right. It does lock up some fighters, especially for the first time in such a big arena like the UFC. But I just try to tunnel vision. I block out the crowd, because at the end of the day, I know that once they close those cage doors, there's only 2 people inside the cage. It's myself and my opponent.
Earlier you said some commendable things about the organization. You're happy to be here, but did you ever have a chip on your shoulder from, when you were on top, things didn't go your way, and then the panel said a few things, that wasn't cool, I guess?
You know what? I believe that God has a plan, and I believe that things happen for a reason. At the time, it probably wasn't my time yet, And I always do believe that things do happen for a reason, and maybe I was stopped at that time in my life, or at that point in my career, from entering into UFC for a reason, for me to work on other things, try to strengthen some of the areas I needed improvement on. And now that I've done that, this was my opportunity. Basically, my time being in the UFC, I think, was when it needed to happen.
And at that time, when you had that setback, was it the kind of setback where you contemplated your career in general, or did you push through easily?
I push through, man. I'm always a positive person no matter what, man. We're all fighters at the end of the day, but outside of the cage, you have to be a fighter in life, and you have to work through any, adversity that comes your way. You can't let things like that weigh you down. If you're, one of those stronger fighters mentally as well, you'll use that as motivation rather than letting it bring you down.
Thank you. Cheers.